The Mazda MX5 is the car which kick-started a lot of people's interest in sports cars. It's still a good seller and a wow to drive. Recently updated without the famous pop-up headlights, in comes a smoother, more profiled front end. And in Car File this week, 3 of our reporters find out if the driving experience is just as good.
When you think of the Japanese, you don't think of a particularly emotional race. So it's strange then that we actually have the Japanese to thank for one of the most evocative types of car there is. I'm talking, of course, about the Roadster.
Fiat's Barchetta, the MGF, the glorious Z3, and the list goes on. All of them are much loved vehicles, but it was the MX5 that started the whole thing off. Some very brave Japanese executives took a big gamble with the MX5, and it paid off. The fact that it's taken Mazda 9 years to replace it shows just how successful it's been. I'm sure you'll agree with me when I say that I really don't envy the designers and the engineers faced with the task of updating one of these success stories of the 90s. But they've managed to do it, and here it is.
The new MX5. It's slightly wider, with a new interior and more equipment. Not very different at first glance, you might think, to the old version. But take a closer look, because the much-loved pop-up headlights have gone. They've popped their clogs.
And it's a real shame, because for me, those lamps were the eyes of the old MX5. They were its character, and without them, the new car now looks like lots of other cars. I loved the old styling, and although the 98 version is a very attractive car, it doesn't tug on my heartstrings in quite the same way.
The old version of the MX5 was much maligned for being a bit of a girl car. So in an attempt to make this version more macho, Mazda have added a bulge to the bonnet. You get a better hood on the new MX5, although it's still very light and is easy to get down. There's no zipping out of the plastic rear windscreen anymore. The new one is heated glass and it folds neatly into place. So what of this all-new interior? Well, it's black, it's plasticky, and yes, it's boring. No surprises here then, this is definitely Japanese. To be fair though, they have added a passenger airbag as standard and a rather nice Nardi steering wheel, which livens things up just a little bit. And the boot is now actually more like a boot. It's bigger in here. In fact, there's just enough room to fit your weekly shopping in.
Now, looks and practicality are all very well. But the whole point of a Roadster is the experience you get behind the wheel. You want pure, unadulterated fun. So how does the new MX5 measure up in the smiles per mile stake?
Well, the MX5 is still a classic sports car. It's front-engined with rear-wheel drive. However, the performance of this engine has increased significantly over the old version.
What that means on the road is that its 4-cylinder 16-valve engine feels very fast and it's always raring to go. But it's when you give the MX5 a set of bends to string together that it really comes into its own. The power steering is extremely direct, it's sharp and responsive. The car has a natural feeling of balance about it, which makes driving on roads like this a whole lot of fun.
And the improved suspension means that it keeps the ride comfortable and smooth over any lumps or bumps you might find. And let's not forget, of course, the lovely short gear shift that lets you work through the gears with just a flick of the wrist.
And if you are planning to have some fun on twisty, turny roads, then you'll be happy to know that the brakes do feel nice and sharp. However, you'll need to go for this top-of-the-range 1.8 IS to get an anti-lock system.
Thankfully for British drivers, the MX5 comes complete with a belting little heater. And believe me, when you're driving a Roadster with the top down, in Manchester you need all the heat that you can get.
So, how much does it cost to have this much fun? Well, the entry-level 1.6 is £15,500 on the road. The 1.8 is £16,650, and if you want to splash out on this 1.8 IS, it'll set you back £18,775. Oh, and you'll need another £250 for the metallic paint.
If the MX5 were a potential date, then you would have to say that it has a great personality. It isn't exactly stunning to look at, but you know that you're going to have heaps of fun with it. And if it's a long-term commitment that you're looking to make, would you rather have a car that makes you smile when you see it parked on your driveway, or one that makes you grin when you get it out on the open road? I love roadsters.
The little Mazda MX5 has become something of a modern-day classic, and with prices from just £15,500, it's no pipe dream for most people either. However, this is Men and Motors, and just for the sake of argument, I would like to question the macho appeal of the Mazda MX5, because unlike the MG, the Fiat or the Alfa Romeo, which all have a certain roughy-tufty appeal, the Mazda, like President Clinton, is actually something for the ladies. You don't agree? Well, some people would actually call this a hairdresser's car, and that's controversial, but I'm about to find out. So a nice gentleman comes to tell us, what do you think? I mean, it's quite stylish.
Very nice, beautiful, nice lines, yeah.
Nice lines?
Sleek car.
Do you like the soft top bit?
Being a hairdresser, yeah, of course.
What do you mean being a hairdresser?
All hairdressers like tops down on cars, don't you know that?
I didn't know that. I thought you'd hate having the top down because it would mess up your hair.
Not with today's styling products, no problem. Just hairspray, bit of gel, bit of wax, sorted.
So there you have it, conclusive proof from our resident hairdressing expert that some hairdressers really do like the Mazda MX-5. You see, the MX-5 is all about image. You wouldn't buy it to drive up and down the motorway all day. And it's not big enough for him and her plus the baby. And although the boot is much bigger than the old car, it's still not big enough to be called a load carrier. The MX-5 is fun. It's captured the imagination of a whole generation of drivers who perhaps in the 70s would have bought an MGB or a Triumph Spitfire. But because it's made by Mazda, the MX-5 is ultra reliable and cheap to run. And drivers start to feel like, well, like they can really drive, even when the road's wet and you're throwing it round a corner. And now there's a new Mazda MX-5 to mess your hair up in. The latest MX-5 offers better performance, handling and stability than the old car. Okay, so the ride is firm, but you could still steer this car around the inside of a supermarket and squeeze through the checkout. It's so precise. The 5-speed gear change is superb. Its short, sharp shift means you can really enjoy the 1.8 or 1.6 litre engine options to the full. Power output is up almost 25% on this 1.6, taking it to 60 miles per hour in 9.7 seconds. That slices almost a second off the old car's time, and it can rocket on to 118 miles per hour. But it's outside where the new Mazda MX-5 really scores. It's now got a much leaner, more purposeful look about it, and these long sleek lines that seem to run the full length of the bodywork really give it the edge. And if you move down to the front, the styling here has also been altered thanks to this larger front air intake, and also probably the most noticeable thing about the new Mazda MX-5 is that those pop-up headlights have gone for good to be replaced by these oval units, and that also helps with fuel economy too. The MX-5 feels, well, cosy and snug inside. If you're looking for practical changes to the new car, this centre console adds a bit more storage. There are the standard issue twin cup holders inside too. You now get an instrument panel pocket, lockable glove box and door pockets in both doors. Twin airbags are also standard. Do you think we've forgotten something? You're absolutely right, it's the hood. But this is the simplest hood in the world. It would actually be more complicated if it was electric. All you've got to do is press these two buttons, pull the levers back and shove. That's it. So that's about it. Fuel economy's up. Insurance ratings start at Group 11 for this 1.6 car, and there are new bronze and green colours to choose from as well. In fact, if you bolt on a set of alloy wheels on the 1.6, it actually becomes a very smart little car. And okay, so it hasn't got central locking and it's got those strange window winder mechanisms on the door, but really it's exceptional value. And let's face it, even your hairdresser would forsake his hair gel for a chance to get into one of these.
After the break, what was really wrong with the old MX5?
Well, spring has finally arrived, and that means that summer is on its way at last. And it's only natural that our thoughts should turn to holidays, long hot summer nights, and owning a sporty little roadster that you can take the top off.
The summer of '97 will be known for the return of the Roadster. BMW Z3, James Bond's choice, has arrived at last. Rover's MGF is going strong. There's the Alfa Spider, the Renault Spider, the Lotus Elise, Fiat's delicious little boat, the Barchetta, and of course the SLK, if you can get your hands on one.
And for the return of the Roadster, we really have one manufacturer to thank, Mazda. When they proved to us that you can combine 60s style with 90s reliability and performance by bringing us the fantastic MX5.
After 6 years and with a new model just round the corner, it's time to take a look at the MX5 and see how it compares to the new kids on the block. Like all its rivals, you buy an MX5 for its looks and the fun factor, not for its practicality.
Owning an MX5 will certainly make you a far more disciplined traveller. There's not an awful lot of boot space, so if you're one of these people that likes to travel with their kitchen sink and then some, you can forget it. There's just about room in here for a weekend bag. But on the plus side, it's a bit of an antisocial car. 2 is company and 3 is definitely a crowd, which basically means that you're never going to have to be the taxi service to your local pub.
The secret of Mazda's success with the MX5 was to keep it simple. It's traditional driving the way it should be in a sports car. A front-mounted engine and rear-wheel drive that together dish out pure driving delight. There are 2 engines in the range, a 1.6 and the more powerful 1.8i, which really is the one to look out for. You'll get 120 miles per hour out of the 1.8. It'll do 0 to 60 in 8.8 seconds and packs 130 brake horsepower under the bonnet. Power that goes, oh joy, straight to the rear wheels.
Strong points, but luxury isn't one of them. The interior styling is very basic and features none of the strong styling that you can see in many of the other roadsters on the market. Now, to get the merest hint of electrics, of ABS, power steering, or even a driver's airbag, you're going to have to opt for the 1.8 IS, which will set you back an extra £3,000. However, you'll find that what there is in the MX5 is sensibly laid out and it all works well. And after you've been driving it for a while, you'll find that the simplicity is really part of the charm about the Mazda. And maybe those little luxuries aren't so important after all.
The driving experience more than makes up for the basic interior. The Mazda has a snappy, sporty gear change. It attacks corners with relish. And sitting in the driver's seat, the handling is so responsive that you feel part of the car, an extension of it. And that means that you get the most out of the action. You and the Mazda become a team, rather than just a driver and a machine.
it's always worth remembering that in England the sun can very quickly give way to cold wind and rain, and you don't want to have to spend 5 minutes struggling to get the hood back up. And I'm happy to report that the Mazda is a doddle, simplicity itself, that you can do one-handed from inside the car. There we go! Nice and warm and dry, and on your way again.
One other thing about the wet to remember, do treat the MX5 very carefully in it. Too much throttle going into a corner and you could end up in big trouble. But for now, let's get back to that sunshine. And you're in the MX5 with the hood down on an open road, and I tell you, it'll win your heart. It's driving cars like this that makes me realise what a fantastic job I have. And then they go and spoil it all by making me give it back.
Getting on for nearly 10 years ago, Mazda took a very brave step. Their rivals derided them at the time because Mazda introduced to the world a two-seater open-top roadster for the mass market, and so the MX5 was born. It was the catalyst for the rebirth of the roadster market, and it took the competition a long time to catch up. Rover brought us the MGF, BMW the Z3 and Mercedes the SLK, although the BMW and Mercedes not quite in the same league. Well, now, after 420,000 sales worldwide, the MX5 has been given a fresh new look. Not a complete sex change, but some gentle facelifting by a skilled surgeon. Now, on initial appearance, the new MX5 may look very similar to the old one, and you could be right in thinking that, but this is a 90% new car over the old shape MX5, and there are some very subtle changes, some different curves. The rear end is a bit different, and here at the front is probably where you'd notice it most. Those lovely, gorgeous pop-up headlights, sadly gone. Safety reasons, cost reasons, who knows what, but the pop-up headlights gone. These headlights, though, offer a lot better illumination than over the previous ones. Under the bonnet you have a choice of two engines. The 1.6 and 1.8 litre have both been retained, but with increased power. The 1.6 is up to 110 brake horsepower and this 1.8 litre to 140 brake horsepower, giving better acceleration, top end speed and also very good fuel consumption and still very good insurance rates as well. So let's see how this 1.8 drives. Take it for a spin. Tim, what was the reason why Mazda decided to change a winning formula and introduce the new MX5?
Well, the car was launched in 1990. Nearly 500,000 have been sold, and things move on. Our customers, we talk to them regularly, and they've told us that one or two things need to be improved. We've improved them, and we've come back stronger than ever with a fantastic car.
What would you say to existing MX5 owners, the main differences they would find if they jump in the new one?
Oh, I think that's very easy. The car's quicker, it's only a tiny bit heavier, and so with more power, that gives it the extra speed. It's more economical. It's got product benefits, some changes. For example, there's a rear glass screen, which is all new and totally unique in the sports car market. It's got twin airbags, it's got a bigger boot, so there are many differences, and apart from anything else, just to set it off, there's some very nice new colours as well.
Extensive efforts were made to minimise weight on the new MX5 and to avoid middle-age spread. The front and rear overhangs are lighter and weight has been moved forward wherever possible towards the centre of the car to achieve excellent balance and weight distribution. The new body shares the same dimensions and wheelbase as the current MX5 except for the width, and that's ensured that the car maintains all the compactness and manoeuvrability of the original car. The 0 to 62 miles per hour acceleration time for the 1.6 litre is now just 9.7 seconds, and the 1.8 litre reaches 0 to 62 in 8 seconds. Top speed for the 1.6 litre is 118 miles per hour and 127 miles per hour for the 1.8 litre. Output and torque for both engines has been improved through enhancements to the intake and exhaust systems, resulting in smooth engine revving from low to high speeds and responsive accelerations. Features such as straight intake port, a variable inertia exhaust system on the 1.8 and a dual exhaust manifold have been incorporated. The performance increases have been offset by detailed attention to minimising repair costs in the new design. The 1.6 is Group 11, the 1.8 Group 12 and the 1.8 IS Group 13. Inside, the cabin remains very much the same. It's not packed with creature comforts, but there's everything you need, and it's all close at hand, very nicely laid out. But perhaps the biggest revelation is the way that the new MX5 now drives. It's of course always been a fun car to drive, but now the engines are more powerful and the handling sharper and more responsive. It's really reminiscent of the golden age of motoring. It's such a fun car to drive, and with the price of the MX5, it allows more people to get into this sort of car. Who would want to pay double for a Mercedes SLK or 10 grand more for a BMW Z3? Not me. Well, what tremendous fun. The new MX5 has retained the qualities that made the old one so good. It handles better, it drives better, there's more power, and there's hardly any increase in price. Mazda aim to sell around 5,000 of these a year, and their philosophy of, if it ain't broke, there's no need to fix it, certainly seems to have worked. Put an old shape MX5 and a new one side by side and you'll really notice the differences. So if you want open-top motoring, try an MX5. They're fun.